Good morning. Welcome to Exploring Faith on Jambo Radio. I'm your host, Inonge Siluka, and this is our first show. So I thought it would be good before we get into our conversation for today to do some introductions. So you will get to know a little bit about me in the coming weeks. So I will try and keep it brief. So I am Zambian. I'm a Christian. And I also have a blog and YouTube channel called Overflow Chat, which talks about conversations about the Christian life, conversations about theology and understanding what we believe and equipping Christians to be able to be confident in what they believe and articulate that. I'm also the founder of Restored Hope Zambia, which is an organization that deals with abuse in the church in Zambia. So that is me in a nutshell. And this show, Exploring Faith, really links in with some of those things and some of those topics. I'm very interested in theology. That's basically just like, what is it that we believe? If you're a Christian, what is it that the Christians believe and why, and what underpins that? I also love wrestling with difficult topics. So the kind of topics that we maybe don't always address in the church, the kind of topics that don't always have easy answers, but which I think are really, really important to grapple with. I don't have all the answers, so just want to put that caveat out there. I don't have all the answers, but I think it's good to talk. So this show is a conversation, is an open conversation. So although I will be doing a lot of the talking, please don't let me just talk by myself and join in the conversation. We will be covering some relevant cultural issues relating to living here in Scotland or in the UK more widely, but also relating to some of our communities, African and Caribbean communities, and relating to the church and faith. Questions about Christianity, questions about the Bible, difficult topics within the church. We are going for it. So, on Exploring Faith today, we're going to be chatting about having a confident faith. So having confident faith, what does it look like to be confident in what we believe? Why is that important? That is our conversation topic. So please join in the conversation. You can call the studio directly. That is on 0141 530 2787. 0141 530 2787. And you can also send us a WhatsApp message. Or if you're not a message person and you love a good voice note like me, you can also do that on 0745 990 6822. That is 0745 990 6822. And if you're on social media, you can also send us a message there. We are on Facebook, that is Jambo Radio Scotland. We are on Twitter, that is Jambo Radio 1. And we are on Instagram, that is jamboradio.scotland. And if you love an email, you can drop us one at info@jamboradio.co.uk. So we would love to hear from you. So feel free to join in, send a comment, a contribution, or a question on our topic today about what it looks like to have a confident faith. And if you haven't already done so, you can download our mobile Jambo Radio app available on the App Store for those of you on iPhone or iOS devices. So, back to our topic. Exploring faith today. So we're talking about having a confident faith. And what do I mean by that? So story time. When I moved from Zambia to Scotland a very long time ago now, just under 20 years ago, I came from, Zambia is quite culturally Christian. We actually have Christian nation in our constitution. So that's the context I was coming from. And moving to Scotland, obviously, which we know is quite secular. So it must have been like maybe a few days into school, like probably like 2 or 3 days. Remember, I've just moved country. I'm new. I don't know what's happening. Everything is different. It's cold. And we have RE lessons. So that's like religious education or religious studies or whatever you want to call it. The topic is, I can't remember exactly, but it was like something around the Bible. So I think it was creation or one of the creation narratives. And the way the teacher was teaching the topic, it was like, oh, who believes this nonsense anyway? Like, why would people believe this? So it was kind of mocking, like the tone of the lesson was mocking Christianity, basically. And what took me aback was everybody laughed. So everybody was like, ha, 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 ha. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is the chat. I'm new and I don't know what to do with this context. It looks like, Christianity here is this thing that people look down on. It is perceived as intellectually inferior in some way. So my response to that, over the next few years was just to shrink back, like, better not mention the Jesus thing then, because I just wanted to fit in. Like, I just wanted to survive. And so I wasn't really confident in what I believed. Like, I was a Christian at that point. I became a Christian at a young age, about 12, 13, somewhere there. But I wasn't confident in being able to say that and stand on that because, I just hadn't wrestled with some of the questions that my fellow students were throwing at me. And so that's why I think this is an important topic, because now that I look back, I'm like, wow, if only I had been equipped to be able to deal with some of those questions. Like, for the first time, like, just for context, like, this is a long time ago, I had never met somebody that was an atheist. Like, the concept just did not, it just wasn't a thing in my vocabulary. So I'm surrounded by all these people who are saying, there is no God. I'm like, wait, what? The Bible is nonsense. Like, why would you believe that? Like, only old people go to church because they're about to die, type thing. So that was really the vibe. And I didn't really have an answer for that. When I was a little bit older, maybe like 16, 17, we would then maybe have a few conversations with my friends about the Christian faith. And they would throw, questions at me about science, about like the Bible. I did not have an answer. I went to church. We would get told to, be bold and be outgoing and share our faith, but we were not really equipped in how to do that. And what does that look like at school when people are throwing all these questions at you, when everybody thinks you're a little bit stupid because you believe, in a God out there. So that's really my heart behind why I want to be having these conversations. It's important to be able to articulate that. So I would like to hear from you. How has your experience of being a Christian, if you are a Christian, maybe you are exploring, this is for you as well, by the way, it's anybody who wants to have these deep conversations. What has been your experience of being a Christian in Scotland or in the UK? And how have you managed to deal with some of these difficult questions that get thrown at you? So I've shared mine and what that was like for me. I'd love to hear from you. So please do send a voice note, send a message on WhatsApp or call in, and we'll play that later on. So the other thing that I think is important to wrestle with is how is Christianity perceived in Scotland? So I've touched on some of that with regards to my own high school experience. But I wonder whether that varies depending on the kind of context that you are in. So my high school, for example, was like, I was literally the only black person at that point. A few more arrived by the time I was finishing school, but so it was white majority. But some people go to schools that are maybe a little bit more diverse, where there's people from different religions. So maybe that might change the dynamic of how Christianity is perceived or the kind of interactions that people might have. So depending on where you are in the UK or where you are in Scotland, that might be different. So so how is Christianity perceived? And then from that, how does that affect our own understanding, our own faith, or our own confidence in our faith? And then secondly, just a thought from that is our own assumptions about truth and what we believe. So I shared, for example, that because I came from a majority, at least culturally Christian country, I hadn't really wrestled with difficult intellectual questions about the Christian faith, or anything that was too uncomfortable, because the way we were brought up, it's like, well, you just need to have faith. Like, you just assume like everything is that you believe is just true, because nobody really challenges that. And anybody that maybe challenges that might get labeled as, the troublemaker or the difficult person, like in Sunday school or in youth group. Like, you don't want to be that person that's asking questions of the leader, because it's like, come on, like just go with the flow, just believe. And so that can sometimes be really unhelpful, because when you have questions, you end up suppressing them, but they don't get suppressed for long. So eventually, those doubts, those questions will make their way to the surface, and they will come up at some point. It might be like years later, maybe when tragedy strikes or something happens that just brings them to the fore. So actually suppressing questions and being like, no, just have faith, is not helpful. It's also not a helpful understanding of what faith is. Like, we are never called to have blind faith. Like, we are supposed to have faith, but faith is the confidence in something, like something that we have seen, that we have observed, and that is centered around the person of Jesus. And so I think it's important to be open and encourage each other to ask the questions that we have, even if we don't necessarily have all the easy answers to that, because I think it's a helpful opportunity to learn. The more we interact with these questions that we ourselves might have or other people might have, the more we learn, the more we grow. I remember in university, I had a friend who she would say she was an atheist, but she had grown up in a Catholic home, and she would, like, for 4 years of university, like, she threw every question at me under the sun, about every topic possible, and I would sometimes I wouldn't have the answers, or I wouldn't have thought of it. Like, she would ask a question and I was like, I've never thought of that before, like, ever. But what I started to do was be like, that's a great question. Let me get back to you on that. And because I would then explore those topics that she was raising, questions about the Bible, questions about science, it helped me actually learn more about what I believed myself. So it was challenging for me, which was good. It stretched me intellectually, but it was also helpful for me, because as I looked and engaged with resources and books and asked around me, I became more and more confident actually in what I believed. I was like, oh, there is an answer to this. Not always neat, tidy answers, but this has been thought through. We are not the first people to think about these questions. Like, sometimes we think, oh my goodness, we're so modern, we're so advanced. But a lot of questions that we ask, they have been asked before. They might have used different language, or they might have been asked in a different way, but there's nothing new under the sun. So when you actually start looking, you go, oh, okay, so people have thought this through. There are answers to the questions, these difficult questions that we have. So that helped me become more confident. And then the third thing is, I think sometimes we don't want to be uncomfortable. We think being uncomfortable or not knowing is going to destroy our faith, right? Like, if somebody asks me something and I don't have a nice, neat, tidy answer for them, that's it. It's game over. And we don't apply that to other areas of life, do we? Like, if you're going on an aeroplane, you don't necessarily go on it having explored like all the technicalities about the engineering of the aeroplane and all the different, you know what I mean? Like, there is so much that goes into making that aeroplane safe for you to fly on. You assume based on, different factors, like, okay, the people that made this know what they're doing. This is an airline, we trust. There's certain factors that you know, and off the basis of that, you make an assumption and you go, okay, it's good to go. Like, we're not gonna crash. This plane is gonna lift off the ground. We're gonna get to our destination. I think for some reason, when it comes to Christian faith, we think we need to know everything about everything, and if we don't, then we can't put our confidence in that. And I think that misunderstands the nature of faith, actually. So actually becoming confident or comfortable with the not knowing part is helpful, because first of all, it's humbling, because you realize that actually, although we like to think we are mini gods and we have all this knowledge with all the technology, we are still finite human beings. There's a limit to our understanding. There's a limit to our knowledge. There's a limit to all the things that we can experience in this life. So actually, there's a humility in saying, I'm not going to know everything. And that's probably good, because, to be honest, with social media and sometimes the access to all the information that we have, I don't think we're handling that very well. Like we have too much. There's too much going on. I don't think we're made to handle that much information. So sometimes the humility to acknowledge, you know what, I will not know everything there is to know. That's fine. It doesn't mean we can't keep asking. It doesn't mean we can't keep growing. It just means that, we can be okay with saying, I don't know. I did some Bible training a few years ago, and one of our lecturers, who, like, this guy was smart, like, knew his stuff. Like, he probably should write Bible commentaries. Like, his brain, like, just how much he understood of the Bible and the themes and how they work together. But one thing that I noticed about him that was quite shocking, I think, because up until that point, I'd always assumed you need to have an answer for everything. And if you don't, panic. And you would ask him a question sometimes, like some kind of tricky Bible question. And he'd be like, that's a great question, actually. I don't know the answer to that. You're like, wait, what? Like, you're just gonna leave it there? Like, you don't know the answer to that? But he would then go, right? And like, I'll need to think about that. And he would come back maybe a few weeks later and be like, by the way, the person who asked about that, here are some thoughts on this. I think it's this. It might be this, but I'm not entirely sure. But I'll go with this because of this. Like, he would give a reason, but be like, I'm not entirely sure. Or sometimes he would just say, I don't think we'd ever know the answer to that. It's not in the text. It's not in the Bible. We don't know. We'll find out one day. And so this is somebody who has a lot of knowledge, who knows their stuff, being confident, being comfortable in saying that. I was like, okay. So you it's okay to just say, I don't know, or this question is tricky, especially certain questions, and we'll explore them in coming weeks. Questions around suffering, or questions that are very emotional about pain, where we can give a philosophical answer, we can give a neat, tidy answer, but sometimes the answer isn't in an answer. Sometimes the answer is in just being present and just being like, oh, I'm sorry, that sucks. And so being comfortable with not knowing in a neat, tidy way is helpful. There's not always easy answers, but I think that's hard for us because we don't like not knowing. We want to be like God, so we want to know everything at all times, and it's just not possible. So I just want to throw a question back to you. What do you think makes it difficult to be confident in what we believe? So for you personally, maybe, or what makes it difficult here in Scotland or in our current society? I'm thinking of different things, like maybe it's a culture. Is that what makes it difficult? Because they're not always on the same page, and they have certain assumptions about what Christianity is and what it's about and what Christians are like. It might be maybe your upbringing or the kind of church that you went to and your experiences with that. So I would love to hear from you. Please join in the conversation. I'll just repeat, you can call us on the studio on 0141 530 2787. You can also drop us a message on WhatsApp or a voice note on 0745 990 6822. Also, you can drop us messages on our social media platforms. We're going to take a short break just for some music, just to give you a bit of a breather, soak it all in, throw your questions and your contributions in. So I'm going to play a song by a Nigerian gospel artist, Mercy Chinwo, and the song is titled Chinadum. Welcome back. You are listening to Exploring Faith on Jambo Radio with me, your host, Inonge. And today we are discussing confident faith, why it's important to have a confident faith, what that looks like, and how we get to that place. So earlier, we were just thinking through some of the reasons why we might find it difficult to be confident in what we believe, some of the barriers to that, some cultural stuff that I was sharing. So yeah, please do contribute, share your experiences, share your contributions, get in touch. You can give us a call on 0141 530 2787. You can also drop us a message on WhatsApp or a voice note on 0745 990 6822. And if you're on social media, please drop us a message there as well if you would like. We are on Facebook, is Jambo Radio Scotland, on Twitter, Jambo Radio 1, and on Instagram, we are jamboradio.scotland. So back to the topic then. So in this part, I want us to maybe think about why it's important. So why it's important to get to a place where we are confident. Doesn't mean that we won't have wobbles or we won't have times where we are experiencing doubt, where things are just difficult. But actually where we are like, do you know what? I know what I'm about. I know what I believe, and I know why, and I can articulate that. And I think there's two reasons why I think it's important to get to that place. And the first is more an outward, so an outward looking thing, and the other one is inward looking. So with the outward, I'm thinking about our engagement with the world around us. So the passage I'm thinking about is from 1 Peter. So in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, for a bit of context here, Peter is written to Christians who are in quote unquote exile. So they're living in a place where they're in the minority. The world around them doesn't think like them. They're not on the same page about what they believe and worldviews and all of that, which would be a similar experience to what life is like, I guess, as Christians in Scotland. And Peter writes to these Christians, and it says in verse 15 of chapter 3, but in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord, and always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander. So Peter is like, you need to be ready, like you need to be prepared to give an answer. There's an assumption there that when you are living your life as a Christian in a way that is consistent with the person of Jesus and who he's and what he's like, that will raise some eyebrows. So if you're raising eyebrows, like that is normal. And because of those raised eyebrows, people will be like, that is an interesting thing that you do, or that's an interesting behavior, or that's an interesting way that you deal with that. Why is that? So that's the question. Then the question will come in. And then at that point, then we need to be prepared to give an answer. And answer honestly. It's not like we have to like make stuff up, but like, why do you live your life this way? Why do you believe that about that? Well, actually, it's because I believe in Jesus in this way or in that way. So there is an outward, like there is a proclamation, reaching out to those around us who are not Christians, motivation for that we want to be able to explain the reason and for our hope, the reason for why we do what we do. There's also an inward, so more of an inward motivation, which is to say, if you are like life is messy, right? So at some point in this life, you will suffer, right? It's not an if, it's a when. We will experience suffering. It might be grief, the pain of losing a loved one. It might be health ill health. It might be financial difficulties. It might be all sorts of things. It might be our own suffering. It might be the suffering of others that we love and care for. We will experience injustices, right? We'll be mistreated. We'll be treated unfairly in different contexts. Maybe in the workplace, it might be just in general in life, like experiencing racism or anything really. Like life will get difficult and messy at some point. And when that happens, I think one of the things that we start to do is ask the why questions. So we start with like, why is this happening to me? And if our faith is placed in merely something subjective, God helped me out that one time 10 years ago. And when you're in the dark places, sometimes those moments are not, they're not there. They're not at the forefront of our minds. And in those moments, we need to be able to grasp onto something more concrete, more solid, something we can say, I've staked my life on this. And it's true, and it's good, and I know it is. And even though right now it's difficult, I know that I haven't, I don't have a false hope, right? I'm not just, we can think of hope as, I hope that comes true. Like, fingers crossed. It's not that kind of hope. Like, my confidence is in someone, and someone that is trustworthy. And so even though I don't understand, even though I don't have the answers, I will hold on. I will keep going. So there's an inward assurance, you could say, an inward peace, a contentment that says, you know what? I believe this, and it's actually true. And it's not just true, it's good. There is also it helps with endurance and perseverance when life becomes difficult. You notice in some of the Bible passages, some of the books of the Bible that are sometimes tricky to navigate. For example, the book of Revelation. We'll do that as a topic one day. But the book of Revelation is like full of all these images and all this battle language. And in summary, the book of Revelation is like Jesus wins, right? But the reason you have all this imagery of like Jesus, which is sort of like power, glorious battle winning, is because that book was written to persecuted Christians. Like they were getting killed. Like it was tough. And it was tempting for them to be like, let's just jump ship, right? This is tough. Like this is not working out. I don't want to die. And so, John, one of the last apostles of Jesus to die, is given this vision, and he's told to share it with the churches that were being persecuted. And this assurance, like this vision of Jesus that shows him as like, yes, it might look like he was this weak man that was persecuted and killed on a cross, but he's actually this glorious, eternal, like Lord, like he lives, like he's powerful, he wins. Like the forces you're up against might look powerful, but he has already won that battle. And this letter is written to those Christians to help them to keep going. So actually, when we get to the place where we are confident in our hope in Jesus, it helps us in times where life is very difficult, in situations where we just want to give up. We can look at that and say, you know what? This is worth staking my life on. One of the questions I like to ask people that I think is helpful to think through, because somebody once asked me this, a student, when I was a student, like, why you're a Christian? And honestly, I'd never been asked it like that before. I did not know how to answer it. I was like, because Jesus died for me, and it was just a mess. But it's a helpful one. It's like, why are you a Christian? Why are you still a Christian if you're a Christian? And now I've got a bit more clarity to that question. It's like, actually, I think because it's true. And because it's good, and because the longer I live, the more I realize actually I don't want to go back to anything else. The words of Peter when Jesus asked him the question, like, hey, why are you still here? Like, do you want to leave me as well? And Peter says, where else can we go? You have the words of eternal life. And so being a Christian and being confident in what we believe is about that outward, being able to explain to others so that they too can understand and love and come to love Jesus for themselves, but it's also about our own assurance and our own confidence that we might be able to continue going, to continue learning, to continue growing, and to have that peace and assurance that no matter what life throws at us, Jesus is too good, the gospel is too true, and we are on the right track. So how, just a question again, throwing that back out there, like, what is it that makes you confident, if you are confident in what you believe? And if you're maybe not there yet, what do you think is something that stops you from getting there? Like, what are some of the questions that you have about Christianity, about the Bible, about your own faith? I would love to hear from you. Again, please drop us a message on WhatsApp, or you can give us a call, and we can play those at the end of the show. We'll take another brief music break now, and I'm going to play a song by Shailene called Startling Mystery. Welcome back. You are listening to Exploring Faith on Jambo Radio. Thank you so much for, if you're still listening, I hope it's been helpful so far. We've been thinking about the importance of having a confident faith, and some of the reasons why we may not be there yet, some of the challenges, especially growing up in African households, or in our African churches. And in the first part of the show, we were thinking about why that might be, like some of the challenges. I shared some of my own experience of moving from Zambia to Scotland, and that sort of cultural Christian context to like a more secular context, and how that messed up with like my own faith, and the questions that raised for me. And then just there, I was just talking about, why it's important to be confident, and the outward motivation for that in terms of our witness to those around us, to those who are not Christians but maybe have questions, or maybe are curious about our Christian faith. And them asking questions could lead them to explore things more for themselves, and also the inward assurance, the peace and confidence and contentment that we can have when we know that what we believe is rock solid, and also how that then helps us to endure later on when life throws whatever it's going to throw at us. And I just thought I would land. It's always a good place to land. Landing on Jesus, always good. So like, just in terms of like, how do we get there? I don't think this is something that like you do. It's a one-off thing and you take off and you're like, yes, got it, nailed it, we're good now. I think it's a continuous journey. We continue to explore. We continue to ask questions, we continue to learn, we continue to grow, and I don't think this life is enough to exhaust the riches of all there is to learn about Jesus anyway. But just to say that, like, whatever we are asking, whatever questions that we are exploring, whatever issues we might have with the church or with the Bible itself, a good thing to anchor it in is the person of Jesus, right? And I say that because he is the heart of the Christian faith. Like, that is the Christian, Christ's one. That's where that comes from. We are Christ's ones. So he is the object of faith. He is the foundation of our faith. He is the author of our faith. So like, he has to be at the center of that. So whether we are asking questions about science, or asking questions about the Bible, asking questions about suffering and pain and justice, or about why the church messes up in this area or that area, whatever those questions might be, if we keep Jesus at the center, it helps anchor those conversations, because sometimes we can go off on a tangent and we lose track of why are we asking those questions anyway. Like, the aim or the goal should be, well, so that I can understand Jesus better, so that I can be more confident and put my trust in him. So keep Jesus the main thing, is what I would say is a helpful thing to do. I'll just give an example. So I work with survivors of abuse in the church. So those who've been abused in churches. And with that work, one of the questions that come up that we'll discuss in future episodes is, what do you do when the church is messing up? What do you do when the church is harming people, or is hurting its members, or the church, but like people in the church? Like, what do you do when Christians are being unhelpful? And that's one of the questions that people might have, is just issues with the church itself. Anchoring that conversation in the person of Jesus comes back to, right, okay, so it's Jesus who founded the church. It was his idea, right? What does he have to say about that? Like, what do we see in the Bible about what Jesus said the church should be like? What does he warn about things that people might do for greed and selfish gain? And that, it's not like a neat, tidy answer, but that helps to provide context. It helps provide a direction of where that conversation should go, how we should challenge certain things. Because if we say we shouldn't do that, like, what's the standard? What standard were we using to measure that? But if we're anchoring conversation around Jesus, he can be the standard. He can be the goal of where we want to arrive and what we want to be like. So always remember, in whatever you're asking, in whatever you're exploring, in whatever you're thinking through, to keep Jesus the main thing. The other thing that I think is helpful is community. So I think sometimes we can go off and, you go and read books, and I love reading books about this. I think I'm going through a phase right now. I'm not reading so much, but there was one point where I was just consuming like whatever I could find. Any question I had, I would try and find a book for it, and I would go to all these conferences, and I would listen to all these podcasts and all these watch all these videos on YouTube, and sometimes like I would caution against just going on YouTube, because there's all sorts of stuff there. But sometimes it can be helpful. They answer a particular question, but in the absence of community, like it's just easy to get radicalized in those contexts, because people are usually they maybe have a niche, right? They just talk about this particular topic, and without the context of community to discuss those things, we can end up going off. We start with good intentions, we want our questions answered, and we end up just becoming a one-trick pony. Basically, we have this topic and it's our pet topic, and that's what we're going to talk about. And anybody else who doesn't agree with us on that topic, they're not real Christians, or they don't really understand, or they don't really know. So explore, ask, read, learn, but then talk about community with friends, with church. Even if those people don't necessarily agree with you, even if they're like, I don't agree, the pushback helps you think through things and helps process, and maybe help you to not absorb everything that might not necessarily be helpful for you. So absolutely would love to encourage anyone who is a Christian to not suppress questions that you have, and to explore them, and to seek to learn and to grow, but knowing that you will never get to a point of ultimate. Please do send those suggestions through as well. I would genuinely love to hear from you, because this is not just me and my chat. I want it to be beneficial to anybody who is listening. So please do send your suggestions. You can email them at info@jamboradio.co.uk. You can also just send them as a message on WhatsApp or a voice note, and we can play them later on, even if not today. So the number again, in case you missed it earlier, to call us on is 0141 530 2787. Or you can also send us a WhatsApp message or voice note on 0745 990 6822. So that is it from me today. Like I said, we will be back in a fortnight, where we'll be looking at the worldview now. Like what is it that we believe, and how does that relate to everyday life? How does that relate to work and family, and some of the questions that we might have, and how can that be a helpful starting point? So we'll be exploring that in a fortnight, so you can join me. Please do share if you found this helpful. If you've got a friend that you think would enjoy the conversation and would love to join in, please do share this with them. We're always live on Facebook as well as on YouTube, Jambo Radio Scotland. Please do that. I'll leave you with one more song just to ease you into the rest of your Saturday. So thank you very much for tuning into Exploring Faith with me, Nonge, today on Jambo Radio. Have a lovely day. Bye.
On your mobile phone and on all social media platforms, Jambo Radio.